Hey guys, it's Kyla at the MJC, and today we're going to be going through the divorce part 2 with minor children. Um, but before we get started, as always, just a reminder that nothing in this video is intended to be legal advice. It's a video, so even though I'm going to talk about some general principles about when folks use the joint with minors paperwork, I'm not able to analyze your specific situation and tell you for certain that this is the right move in your situation. I also can't evaluate whether what you're agreeing to is in your best interest or whether what you're agreeing to will be approved by a court. So if you have questions about those sort of things, I definitely recommend getting some legal advice. You can get brief legal advice for free here in Milwaukee through the Marquette Volunteer Legal Clinics. If you're not located in Milwaukee, you can contact your clerk of court to find out what resources are available in your area. All right, so as I said, we are starting here with a brief introduction on the joint with minor children paperwork. And these are just some of the questions that you should ask yourself to make sure that the joint with minors paperwork is the right set of paperwork for you. And then we'll talk about what forms need to be filled out. So first, when these forms are generally used. So you use the joint with minors forms if you started jointly with your spouse and plan to continue jointly with your spouse. So sometimes we'll get folks where one party or the other originally filed a summons and petition with minor children, but now the two parties agree 100% and they want to go forward together. If that's your situation, you'll actually want to do this using the stipulated forms, which is a different set of videos. For our situation, if you are wanting to go forward jointly, you want to make sure that you originally filled out the joint with minors petition. So you'll want to make sure that that is the one that you filled out. Both you and your spouse signed it and submitted it to the court together. If you didn't start using the joint with minors petition, then most likely you can still go forward jointly, but you'll be using a slightly different set of paperwork. The next thing is you and your spouse need to agree 100% about all of the terms of your divorce. You need to agree about property division, maintenance, which is spousal support, they used to call it alimony, child support, custody, and placement. And what makes this really tricky is you have to agree on a specific number for like maintenance or child support or what your specific placement will be, or I suppose you could agree that it's going to be reasonable times, reasonable notice, or something like that for placement. And this can hang some people up because they might agree that there should be child support, but they don't necessarily agree to a number. Or they'll say, yeah, we just want the court to figure out a number. At least in Milwaukee, when you are going forward jointly, you do need to have in your proposal your agreement, what you guys want that number to be. So it does have to be a specific number. Yeah, and same thing, maintenance. If there's going to be maintenance, it needs to be a specific number. So if you and your spouse agree generally that you want to get divorced and you agree, that there should be maintenance or child support or whatever, but you don't quite agree on specific numbers, you could go forward separately, but it also might be a good time to get some legal advice about what way makes the most sense going forward, or to go to an organization that does mediation, because mediation is obviously designed to help you and the other person come to an agreement on those things where you are close but not quite there. Next, in looking at whether you should be doing the joint with forms, you'll want to make sure if you plan to go forward jointly with minor children, you and your spouse both need to be willing and able to sign forms. We'll get some folks who come in and say, you know what? My spouse and I agree about everything. We've talked about it, all of this, but they're not willing to fill out a financial disclosure and they're not willing to sign the forms. In that situation, because the way you show the court that you agree is by both signing this agreement and then showing up and, saying, yes, it is what we agree to, it can be tricky to go forward jointly. You really need your spouse to participate to be able to go forward jointly. So if you think, even though you think you agree, if you think your spouse may not be willing to work with you, that can be another red flag that maybe you need to go forward contested, or again, maybe you should get some legal advice to discuss your situation and see what options might be available to you. The last thing you'll want to check as far as does going forward jointly make sense is whether you and your spouse are both able to attend that final divorce hearing. That's a little bit less tricky right now because as I record this, we're in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, so many of our hearings are happening remotely using either phone conferencing or using Zoom. But once we return to more normal situations where you have an actual physical hearing at the courthouse, your spouse will need to be able to attend that hearing. Courts vary about their rules regarding when people can appear by phone or if they can appear by phone for these default divorce hearings, which is what they call it when you guys are going in jointly. So that could be another good thing to get some advice about to make sure that in your specific situation, you'll be able to go forward. And then last but not least, I did just want to talk briefly about when you're using the with children forms. For most people, this is going to be pretty self-explanatory. You use the with children forms if you and your spouse have minor children together. So if you and your spouse have kids who are under 18, you'll use the with children forms. But some of you may fall into this sort of unusual exception where if a female party in the case had children during your marriage, so we don't care about children who were born before you got married, but had children while you were married that are not the spouse's children or child, and paternity has not been established. So if paternity has not been established, but the kids were born during the marriage, that could be a situation where the marital presumption applies. And so you may have to file the with minor children forms, even though you don't have minor children together. That process can obviously be confusing, and you guys know what I'm going to say. That would be a great opportunity to get some legal advice about your situation and about what you need to do to make sure that you have, everything done that you need to have done, and just so you know what to expect going forward with the process. All right. And so then, and I suppose I should mention, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but if you worked with the MJC at the beginning of the divorce process, so if the MJC helped you in person with the divorce part 1, you would probably have received a black folder. So if you started with that joint with minors petition, we would have given you a black folder, hence why the slides here are black with the white lettering. So if you received a different color folder, that could be, again, a red flag that possibly this is not the right set of paperwork for you. All right, so assuming you've gotten through all of my warnings there and now you're saying, you know what, joint with sounds right for me, I've heard all your warnings and they either don't apply or I'm going to go forward anyway, then what forms do you need? And so here, I've just included the forms that you need to fill out. So there may be other things that you need to gather to submit with the documents. For example, the parent education certificate. But I have just listed what you need to fill out here. If you're looking for what all you need to gather and a full list of what you're going to need, you'll want to check out our videos on the checklist and the filing steps. So anyway, as far as forms you'll need to fill out, you'll want to fill out a financial disclosure statement. Both parties need to do a separate do your own financial disclosures. Marital settlement agreement with minor children. And you can see I've included the form numbers for all of these. So FA 4139 for the financial, FA 4151 for the marital settlement agreement. All of those different things, just to give you sort of an idea of where of the form that you're looking for. So you can try and search using that number. Do make sure, even if you search using number, go ahead and make sure that the title lines up, says marital settlement agreement with minor children. In theory, things could change in the future, and so if you look up the form number and it doesn't look right, say it says proposed marital settlement, or it says, party's approval of something. It could be that the numbers have changed, so you'll want to rely on the name of the form. But I've included the form numbers to try and help you find them if you're looking for the forms. You'll need the proposed parenting plan. You'll need the interim financial summary if either party is going to receive child support or maintenance. You will need the divorce annulment worksheet unless you're getting a legal separation. If you're seeking a legal separation, you do not need that divorce annulment worksheet. And then you'll also need the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and judgment form. And you'll also need the party's approval of the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and judgment form. And if anybody is going to be changing back to a former surname, like a maiden name or any other name one of you has used in the past, you'll want to get that abridgment regarding surname form. All right, well, that is all the forms. The rest of this video series is going to be about filling them all out. I hope that you will join me for that journey. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you do have questions, again, you can come see us during non-pandemic times in room G9 of the Milwaukee County Courthouse. Until then, thank you guys for watching, and I hope that you go out and represent yourselves well.